Hello, welcome back to CHMR 93.5 FM. Got Dave Ford here and Dual Citizen. Really interesting show. I'm going to start off with a couple tracks from the new album Data from Leo Alves and Juan Antonio Nieto from Brazil and Spain. They've been collaborating in this really interesting work over the last 10 years. So we're going to hear some of those two new tracks from the album Data. And then after the break, we're going to have a nice good chat with Leo down in Rio in Brazil there. So stick around and enjoy.
Pouca vergonha, fez chegar, conversar com o morador. Ficaram aí quebrando, chegaram quebrando barraca, tem criança lá passando mal, eles não deixam tirar as crianças. Eles fizeram uma guerra, eles que fizeram a guerra. Eles chegaram já derrubando barraca, quebrando tudo. A gente queria conversar.
Hi there, welcome back to Dual Citizen on CHMR 93.5 FM. We just heard the first two tracks from Leo Alves, you have to correct me if I say the names wrong, and the collaboration with Juan Antonio Nieto from Brazil, their new album Data. That was the first two tracks. Yeah, new album Data from Brazil. They've been compiling this work for the last 10 years. Welcome from Sao Paulo. Is that where I'm talking to you from?
I'm from Rio. Actually, Niterói, Rio de Janeiro. It's a city within Rio de Janeiro state. I'm glad to be here. Glad to meet you, Dave.
Yeah,
and to talk to you. Just a little correction. It's that my partner Juan Antonio Nieto is from Spain.
From Spain. Okay.
But that's okay. That's okay.
So you're collaborating from overseas.
Yes, it's our second collaboration, in fact.
Excellent.
We did before our first collaboration release called Post-Sleep Paths. It was released first in a net label, a Swedish net label called Two Left Hands on Two Right Arms, Flotra.
Okay.
And then it has a physical edition by Lucinia Discos from Spain, and two editions. What's a cool run, it's a really good record, and we enjoy to work together, and like at 10 or even more 10 years after, here we are again. Excellent.
Well, it's so I've listened to the album a few times, and again, we heard the first two tracks. We're going to play some more after the interview and after the break. But this is pretty intense. Like this goes back to your family. You're talking about some of the political thing with your grandfather, Mário Alves went through in the Brazilian military dictatorship. So what's going on? What's going on down there? What has gone on down there?
Well, yes, it's very dense, and it's a lot of things in this story. But here we go. I mean, trying to get kind of an overall thing about this. I'm a grandson of Mário Alves, which was a revolutionary journalist and also member of the Communist Brazilian Party.
Yep.
And within several decades, he was a fighter for justice and equal rights in many forms, even before joining the Communist Party. But then in 1964, when Brazil had a civil military coup that lasted 21 years, he was one of the hundreds of disappeared persons. In fact, thousands. We just have numbers, like official, let's say, recognized disappeared people within a very low number of 400 and 500, and it's not all of them, because indigenous people, for instance, back in the 70s, during the military dictatorship, thousands was disappeared. Whole tribes were killed, and this indigenous genocide, in fact, as a matter of fact, I wanted to say, in Brazil, last 500 years, of course. But turning back to the album, within this 10 years that we've collaborated first and now, it's very meaningful to me, because these 10 years, that decade, was very politically and socially turbulent here in Brazil. And as you might know, that sums up with a whole family history of mine, because of my grandfathers, and because since then our family not only fights for his body, to have the right to, and not only that, but everyone's body who has disappeared, and nowadays bodies that are disappearing, poor and indigenous people, for instance. But so the album brings up several political issues, not only because of my personal family history or Brazilian family history, but also making some interchanges between Brazil and Spain, because my partner Juan, he himself suffered, and his family too, with gentrification, for instance. And that's it. It's an effort to make these and other kind of connections too, between intercontinental connections. And we find interesting, for instance, to bring and mix up field recordings that Juan is been doing. Especially, he focused on works based on field records for these 10 years, for instance, and then this comes up within the record too. And I myself try to mix with field recordings, let's say, not exactly field recordings. It's not the intention, but there is, yes, some ambient recordings mixed with those voices that you hear from for former political prisoners and the torturer, one of their torturers, because that was a specific event in 2013. So those recordings comes from the imagery, the video that.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, that's you can feel even without the reading the pre notes about it. You can feel the intensity of it. And since we're talking about connections in the media there, or through your own, whatever research, have you heard of the recent findings? Well, to a lot of people, it's not recent, of course, but the findings here in Canada and obviously the United States of Indigenous people.
Yeah, man.
The children and the graves and that. So I think there's a lot of connections to be made there.
A lot of connections, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm aware of this tragic story, and it's started at Camp Loops School, something like that. I'm also aware that that's has been very difficult for all Canadians, because I'm used to listen to a podcast, a Canadian podcast, from Vishkana. It's Creative Control. The name, I don't know if you're aware, but I listen to this issue being brought up sometimes, and from other media too. So I noticed also that Canada has a Truth Commission even before that finding.
The Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, you're going to get if you dig into that, you're going to get a lot of different point of views what that means. I think a lot of people might be feeling that that's just kind of hey, can we just give you some money? Can we just get over this and get on with being I don't think a lot of people are feeling it. I think for a lot of colonial Canadians, such as myself, I certainly don't feel this way, but they just want to be like, okay, are we okay now? Can we get on with not feeling guilty? And this truth comes up, and it's actually what's happening. It's through the eyes of the United States and Canada, there's a real fascist movement growing, and watching American media every once in a while. I forget who the name of your Brazilian so-called leader is in Brazil, but definitely some of him buddying up with Trump a bit, and that fascist
absolutely
mindset has moved heavily into Canada. I shouldn't say moved; it's always been here. It's awakening those who it's empowering them. So, as some people are like, "Oh, wow, that's terrible." Other people are digging their heels in, and globally we have a fascist issue to deal with, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's unfortunately true.
Yeah.
But also, I feel some hope, not only because of Trump's not getting in office a second time, but I can feel it's a period. I at least I hope so. But we fight for being only a dark period, of ours. But yes, those dilemmas, I guess, not the very best word, but those issues when it comes about truth commissions are very actually in several places. It happens in our case too. I guess it happened in the apartheid from South Africa.
Right.
So these questions, I myself, had to think about that because, as you said, many find it too shallow because comes with the truth comes also other transitional justice actions like reparation, economical reparation, but this is not all, that's important to say. The idea of the concept of transitional justice, it's a international one. It's basically path or suggestions for a country or a nation to overcome a totalitarian regime, like it happened in Nazi Germany. It's difficult to show even from the people who are directly affected, like my family, that this is an important part, the economical reparation, for instance. But here in Brazil, similar to what you're saying, here in Brazil, this politic of reparation started 1995.
Okay.
And the rest, and what happened at that time, which is very little compared to the people affected, but 100 and so families got their disappeared persons recognized by Brazilian state. Therefore, there was this, economic reparation. The rest of the society didn't get it too well. The conservative ones, for instance, they call it Bolsa Ditadura, which means in English like dictatorship, No, it's not a scholarship, but money for people who've been affected, and that's all. But this is not all. The whole thing of transitional justice. It means not reparation, but psychological reparation. It means that the state and that nation must give you a official sorry. I don't know pardon. I don't know.
Apology. Yeah.
Apology. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it seems that, for instance, the Catholic Church didn't for your prime minister. Okay.
St. John's, Newfoundland, was one of the first the Beothic to be wiped out. It was because the island of Newfoundland. Do you know where Newfoundland is? Do you know the island?
Not really.
It's okay. So there's Canada, and then you go like 8 hours on the ocean on a ferry, and then there's this big island out on the sea, and you're in Newfoundland. So, some of the first colonizers and that kind of thing, they came, and there was a population of indigenous people. Well, there was a lot of people living on the island, living life. And, over, I don't know the exact timelines, but I think the last person who died of the Beothic people was sometime in the 19th century. So that history's right here. It's everywhere, of course, yeah. So sorry, I'm kind of jumping a bit, but so is Brazil right now, would you say it's in a fascist dictatorship? Is that what you're living under right now?
It's not a dictatorship, technically saying.
Okay.
Because we don't matter right now about technical terms right now. We can say that is a genocide in March.
Okay.
It's not new, but
right.
It's spread wide now because Brazil for 500 years it's being massacring the poor, Black, and indigenous populations. But now within this COVID crisis, for lack of care and negligence and many opportunities actual and acting harmful and dangerous. he's killing our population, basically. There is also, we have a commission right now, an inquiry commission that's going on, and probably it's going to, he's going to be responsible for like 3/4 of deaths going on here. But besides COVID, Bolsonaro, which is this is his name, our president is called Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro, it's an old known person for families of people disappeared, for instance. We know him. He praised dictatorship. Actually, he's doing this right now publicly as president.
Okay.
That's it. But what you were trying to say, and maybe you forgot, it was because I was mentioning the Catholic Church. Because here, the army, which Bolsonaro was in back close to the dictatorship, but not into, but he was expelled from the army because he tried to make like terrorist attacks back then, like in the 80s or 70s in the 80s. But anyways, here the army also didn't apologize us. The state did via amnesty commission, but the army not. So I think it's similar to the Catholic Church in your case.
Definitely, and well, you know, to I think of, when I think of the military, I think of the police here, and you know, and obviously the Catholic Church. Let's talk about apologies a little bit. What do you think of, what do apologize mean with no? So when the Canadian government apologizes to Indigenous people, but still can't hook up that clean water, still can't have, you know, they're still tearing families apart, people going missing, that kind of thing. What does it mean? And what do apologies mean?
That's part of the dilemma too, because let's say, exactly, I cannot speak for the Indigenous people in Brazil, but here we got something even worse, because our Truth Commission was closed. I mean, the focus of our Truth Commission was the dictatorships we had in Brazil in the 20th century. So there was this social focus that itself is racist, itself is, I mean, structural racism, at least racism, because these, I mean, our Truth Commission at least pointed that 8,000 indigenous people had been either killed or disappeared in dictatorship. But as you said, at the same time, really at the same time, 2013 and 14, we had a hydroelectrical power plant, you know, being constructed within, you know, indigenous areas. So, you know, harming their lives, you know, and gentrifying them too. So, as you said, it's weird when we have this kind of apologies and in the actual present. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, because I mean, and is that not I guess some people would say, maybe people like me, I don't know, that's a form of genocide unto itself. You know, you push people off, and then the people get pushed into the cities.
Yeah,
and that kind of thing. Like you're in. What's the population of Rio?
Rio, the city of Rio has 10 million people.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry, the whole state has 10 million people. The city itself, 2 million people, I guess.
Okay.
But we're not, well, just complementing your previous question, what apologies means. Well,
sure.
well, as I said, in indigenous point of view, I wonder that it's not cool, and that it's never cool, because they're not cool right now. You know, their lives not being, especially with this government, but for, let's say, myself, median class, you know, white man, with the apologies they gain a more wide meaning because it's a political meaning, and it helped the Argentinian people, for instance. So it's a very good example. Argentina had itself several dictatorships, but the last one, they how do I say, they successfully, just after the end of their dictatorship, they engaged truth commissions and several actions. So a grid of actions, not only one, not only indemnizations, or you see. So what they got, from 83 to today, hundreds of tortureds are in jail, man.
Okay.
So that's
interesting.
Cool. Yeah. That's cool. But also the state had to make an official apology to the families. So that's all part of the same grid of actions. So that's
so there was some effect, like people in tortures in jail. That's something
like 300. It's insane. Here we have not even one condemned. In fact, only to be honest, we have a recent good news that one person involved in that era repression, it's condemned. It's on the, it's on the way. The first one. Former military man. And I think only people from the army there were condemned, but we still fight to recognize, for instance, that Volkswagen, sponsored dictatorship here in Brazil. There were some CEOs from multinational corporations here that they enjoyed torture sessions. They watched them like if it was football. It's ridiculous.
I understand that.
But that's it.
That's interesting you say VW. I remember at the Folk Fest here up in Manitoba, the VW would be sponsoring it sometimes. So it's really interesting talking to you. The parallels are because when you live in a particular, like, so in Canada, I always remember growing up I was kind of an environmentalist. I mean, obviously I still am, but I've learned a few things in how I approach it. Anyway, in the 90s and 2000s, it was Brazil, or South America's cutting down the rainforest, and we're making cheese, like the cattle, and I imagine that's all true, and I imagine that's very problematic, and it kind of became this way in your head that it's like, other places are making the mistake, in your own homeland. I guess I'll call Canada my homeland for now. But we're doing the exact same thing is happening, like the massive forestry. Is it the same relative to landmass? I don't know, but there's massive amount of trees being cut
in Canada.
It's totally at all times.
Really, I didn't have that impression.
No,
truly.
Because we don't project that impression. We project. Canada projects what it projects. And it's really easy for us to.
Which would be, sorry, because I have an impression from Canada.
We project, that we're the peacekeepers, and that we're the the beautiful democracy, and I, again, getting back to the children in Kamloops, and obviously all across the land, and I'll call it so-called Canada, because many people don't recognize it as an established nation, and I listen to those voices, but they're cutting down trees like crazy, and then they project this global image, and that image is shattering.
Oh my God! I really,
as it should.
Actually, since I've been listening to this podcast that I mentioned.
I'll check that out.
I'm deconstructing a little bit my first impression of Canada, because I have a good friend that I've worked with. His name is Glenn Hall. He's a saxophonist and live in Toronto. And,
cool.
He came here, stayed like a month. We were working together with a Austrian artist called Bernhard Gau. But not only from him, I knew that Canada, I also related Canada very much with the health care system, which I appreciate. But in a way, culturally, for us, it's sort of a North America shadow,
Yeah.
It's something like that. But very cool people and educated people. That's the impression,
Well, and there obviously there's elements of that, and there's of course. Like I'm not trying to paint this completely terrible.
No. But I understand you, because Vish kind of always said that it's not like that, not really like that. His family is from India, for instance, and he's always interviewing people, not dissident people, people with dissident cultures, or silenced cultures, like Black people, like immigrants and so forth. But he for instance, he moved to Edmonton, Alberta.
Yeah, Edmonton. I used to live in Edmonton.
And he says that it used to be a progressive town, but now it's like conservative.
Well,
he says
it's definitely a battleground for sure. I mean, both entities exist, but the conservative, I mean, sometimes I find conservative, or even I'm going to say fascist voices, they don't necessarily represent the bulk of the population, but they're loud, they're powerful. They obtain status, they obtain property, they coordinate together. I can't imagine the bulk of Brazilian population is full of hate and wants torture.
It's sort of the same here,
Yeah,
it's like a very few people who is loud,
Yeah, and I
also
feel like that's how fascism.
Continue.
Works. Yeah, I feel like that's how fascism indentures itself. Like it stays loud, and peaceful people are like, like we even try to get along with them a bit. It's like we find common ground, and then they push, and they won't stop.
They push so hard.
They won't stop, and then they obtain power. They obtain the control of the military, and which I think you've seen is obviously is, and then that's that.
Yeah, well, I hope so that not happens there. I mean, they're taking control of the military, because Bolsonaro, he's trying to. Yeah. In fact, he was elected by the military. He was never a great, political national figure, never. Okay. And it was a sort of a context opportunity for the military to pick him up, because he was, to make long story short, even though the military elected him, he tried a few times he tried coups right now, within the pandemic. A bit of wind of that. Yeah. This is crazy. Within the pandemic, man, this is totally crazy. But even the army, didn't accept it. I mean, it not spelled him or anything like that still. But they are, the vice president is a general. So, but anyways, Brazil, it's, as you said, like Canada, it's not half people fascists and hateful people, really not. Brazil is very oppressed country, plus 200 million plus people. Yeah. But generally, we have solidarity within us. Yeah, still a lot of racism and structural, misogyny and etc. It's ridiculous.
Let's, because I think not wrap it up immediately, but let's get back to your incredible art project, your music, because I want to have some time to play a bit more. One question I have, I'm trying to imagine. So I'm listening to your album and what you do, and seeing the video. Do you go out and perform live in Rio or Sao Paulo or in rural communities in Brazil? Or do you tour? How do you perform this music?
Okay, very interesting question. For that album, I didn't perform yet.
Okay.
But previous occasions that I released albums, which means 10 years before, because since then I've been always performing, it's a very, I have a very artistic, action. Just coming back. For that album, it didn't happen yet. But previous albums, what I did was I toured different states, like Northeast Brazil, and then coming back to the South and where Rio is now, it's another region. So, but I used to invite people from these places to form little groups.
Okay.
Because much of my work, it deals with improvisation,
Okay.
And different improv settings, improv conceptual pieces. And then the album itself, all my albums, this is the 5th, they are acousmatic ones, basically. So it's basically an electroacoustic music to listen with headphones. It's not too much. That's for sure. Several pieces of mine with also these from this record are performed in electroacoustic concerts. So electroacoustic concerts are made for exactly that. We set up a good, spatial projection of the sound, a cool place, and we all sat in here. We're all sitting here, and listen to better. And then that's it. It's very, I also do like sound installations or performance, in now using the term performance as that urban intervention, for instance. That's it.
Okay.
What else?
Well, I think I want to leave a little time to hear some of this amazing project from Data. Leo, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Hello. Thank you.
I hope we get you back, because it's great to get that insight.
Let's do it. Let's do so, man.
Yeah. So we're gonna hear the rest. There's much time left with the album, the new album, Data. What are the best links while people are listening? People can find you. What's a great place people can find you online?
Basically, I have my social media at Instagram and Facebook, but collect my sounds at SoundCloud.com. So it's SoundCloud.com/Leo Alves Vieira. Leo Alves Vieira.
Okay, so, and I'll for those listening, I'll post that up on my Dual Citizen Facebook. I'll post all your links up online, so we'll do the best to.
Thanks a lot.
Make sure the public can find you. So, all right.
All right, man.
Leo,
I'm so glad. Thank you very much, Dave. And I also thank everyone who's listening. And see you next time. Very soon, sure. I hope.
O excesso é a tortura e a tortura é o excesso. Houve excesso.
Como é que o senhor diferenciaria, na sua concepção, o que é tortura, o que é excesso? O senhor poderia nos dar exemplo?
São as mesmas coisas.
O que seria tortura? O que seria excesso? Não, o que o senhor está chamando de excesso?
Tudo que foi nomeado aqui.
Por exemplo, vamos lá, choque elétrico é fácil.
É fato.
Pau de arara é fácil.
É fato.
Torturador e vítimas ficaram frente a frente.
Senhora, eu não tenho absolutamente nada nem de qualquer participação, qualquer que fosse, a tortura do seu marido, do seu marido.